guys want to set up a volleyball court?
Yeah, we don't have much for views out of our office. We
Makes
just
sense
have the
for
radio
someone else
building.
out there right
Yeah,
now.
which is cool, but.
There's always people using the bigger equipment over there. It's pretty fun.
You know, I've never noticed the lead until I walk outside actually.
Yeah. No, ours, because we're right there. That's pretty wrong.
Start getting freaky with that. That's why.
Yeah.
I've never noticed it, more just like the 6th Street traffic.
Yeah.
People are laying on the floor.
Yeah. Yeah, it does get, you need right, out of your window, it gets,
That's where it gets congested.
Yeah,
Right outside of our county server window.
Yeah.
So you have to, in the summer, it gets a little toasty when it's closed. So you keep the window open a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, these stairs being down and traffic noises.
Yeah. It's fun.
Because I thought I enjoyed reading that much
Their conversation.
Yeah, no, zero awareness of that either.
I hope so.
So we may need certain plans.
How are you doing, Andrea?
I'm good. Are you guys gonna next Wednesday again?
We're gonna go to security back this time.
Okay.
That's the sector. They had people in there last time, I guess, finishing.
Very short range.
So we're gonna go to
House three.
security.
Where they don't know.
And then back.
Nice.
Okay.
We've also discussed doing something different.
You stay home or home?
Happy hour.
That's great. Thank you.
Attendance has been lacking, so I'm hoping.
Well, it was summer.
Yeah, that's true.
Taking a long route even, myself.
Trey talking about it. It didn't work. Whatever. Or we have to make people's lives more simple. Cool.
No, Nate and Brian on page
Put something in.
16, top of the page,
Oh, golfing?
at the,
Yeah.
at the Gold Shovel Classic.
Is this the magazine he was trying to?
I think so, yeah.
And you look at that, how, what picture you guys use.
Brian's not looking up in the picture. I'm trying to make fun.
You look like he's eating something.
What page is it?
16.
16, top of the page. Josh is in the
He is,
middle
he's
of
eating
the
a
page.
cookie.
I'm in there?
Yep, you're in the middle of the page.
Yeah, it was soaking wet that day.
It was quite, yeah, downpour for 15 minutes, maybe.
Yep, and then again, right after you're done.
It's funny, I looked up at this morning, I didn't see that.
It says all in my last few seconds.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening. Nate, any additions to the agenda?
No changes.
Okay, then I'll look for a motion to approve.
So moved. Second.
Motion is second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. On to visitors to be heard. Any visitors come forward this evening? Okay, seeing that there's none, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Would there be anything you'd like to draw attention to this evening, Nate?
Couple items, Mayor and Council. First item, just draw attention to the police report for July, the arrests document. Just note that there were 18 arrests last month. This has been a trend for us. A lot of those are drug and alcohol related. So I will probably say that almost all of them are in some way or shape or form related to drug or alcohol, but we have seen an uptick, particularly in the drug arrests over the last several months. I would attribute that to additional training that our officers have gone through, particularly JJ as a drug recognition expert that's shared throughout the department. Some additional items, house moving permit. This is for tomorrow, moving the house from the high school to 505 South Garfield. Route is already set, permits, for the most part have been obtained, I believe, and Josh has been working with the mover. I think they've got their DOT permit secured already as well, so on that we're asking for approval pending the receipt or pending their granting of a DOT permit, because they'll have to come down the highway. There's a sewer jetting agreement in there from Kyle that's asking for approval for not the cheapest, but the best option there. And then the special event permits for the homecoming parade. They're asking us for a permit as well for what they call burning the L. But since that's at the school parking lot, it's really not our purview. We just ask that they use common sense and make sure fire is there. They've already talked to the fire department, sounds like. Then last item on the consent agenda is a preliminary plan for Settlers Edition. This was recommended for approval by the Planning Commission on Thursday evening, and we present it for your approval tonight.
Thank you. Items for discussion, council, or questions?
Brian mentioned he's working with the DOT on the lighting on Highway 17 and how we're going to handle that with the 2026 project out there. Do you have more information you can share about the 2026 project?
Nothing that I can share yet. I know that the project is planned for 26. It's going to be a widening project from approximately 281st Street to, 279th to 280th. Basically going past Sioux Steel, Wilson Trailer, and then down to the lumber yard. So there'll be a northbound lane, a southbound lane, and a turn lane. So it's going to be a widening project with new lighting, no curb and gutter, but we're working with them on a couple items there. We should have their drawings here, I would think, within the next month or so.
Good, good.
So it's been a very collaborative process. It's been good to work with them, and they've been very communicative. So
Good, good. Lighting all the way to the turn on 44.
that's my understanding.
Nice. It'll be fun to see those plans when they submit. From a water perspective, it's noted that we had a major improvement in water loss at 2%. Can you give me some perspective, Kyle, on what that used to look like? Hey.
Yeah, so since I've been here, going on 6 years now, I think I started with an average of like 15 to 20% water loss. This year it is trending really well with last month at a 2% water loss. I think majority of that has to do with kind of capturing water usage. Like for an example, like the baseball field irrigation meter wasn't working. The multiple meters throughout city facilities such as like the camp dump site or some concession stand meters were in the system incorrectly. So working with utility billing clerk with Jen, kind of narrowing down that water capturing devices has definitely improved the ability to capture water going through a meter. So
Nice. Definitely a multi-year effort.
yeah. Those original meters are approaching, the 20-year lifespan, so that has to be kind of brainstormed in the next couple of years for replacement.
Yeah, that's a pretty incredible improvement.
Absolutely.
Nice, thanks for sharing that
Quite an
perspective.
accomplishment, for sure.
I'm glad Kyle mentioned the 20-year life on those meters, and that we do have to plan for something coming up here. The downside of this project is that the financing on those meters was done for 30 years, even though their life is only 20.
Hmm.
So, we are still paying for those meters. even
What,
after
what
this.
kind of costs are we looking at to?
Right now, to put in a new meter is about $380. And that's just an average 3/4 inch residential meter. They get price varies in size, so
Say that again, how much?
about 380.
Did we do the town in phases, Nate, back when we did? No.
Well, it may have been over a couple of
Yeah, and I
years,
think
but,
they may have hired a contractor too.
yeah. Okay. So, you're looking at, let's call it 500,000 coming up as an expense sometime in the next few years.
I think throughout the month they changed a good 5 that are already starting to die. Battery lives are depleting, so.
So do we proactively go out and do that, or how do we
Usually-
approach that project?
Until we see a failure on the communication, so in the system, if it has a fail, like the collector didn't get a signal from the meter, it'll notify us, and then that's when we go out. And most of the time, at this point, we're just replacing them, because why go in there twice?
On another note, the jetting project with Bender,
Yeah,
and you mentioned they use Diamond Maps, and that
Correct.
gives them the ability to share photos and everything with
Yeah.
us within our system. That sounds like a real no-brainer, because
Yeah,
it
so
really
if you-
simplifies the process.
if you click that link there, you can see it. If you're familiar with our GIS that Stockwell has, we don't have much ability to change anything on that. That's strictly Stockwell's software, but with this, we can integrate, we can change things on the fly in the field as we see it. So things, can be put right to that software instantly.
We can put service notes in, we can,
We're already utilizing it for, valve exercising, hydrant flushing, which sections of main sewer main that needs to be, replaced or has deficiencies. And if Bender sees that during his jetting, he can quickly note it, and it's there right for us. So,
That's really cool.
yeah.
I was actually gonna ask that, because when we toured, the fire department a couple weeks ago, the committee, I recognized it from that, so it's the same
Oh,
map
is
that
it?
they use,
Okay.
correct? Nate?
it's very, if it's not the same, well,
Because I think they said they layer it in from Stockwell, is what Mike had said,
Yeah.
but,
they may be using Stockwell GIS with just a certain layer.
but it looked familiar,
Actually,
so.
What was the cost of that new maps again?
I think it's
$300 or something.
$300 a year. It's
Yeah.
very minimal.
Yeah.
It's
Well worth
totally
the
worth it
investment.
for us.
Thank you.
Questions for Kyle?
One more.
Also excited about the computer and alarm system going in.
Yep, that's ongoing right now. I had a call today with the tech. When 911 is working, so now the dialer system is able to reach out. It'll rotate from me, Dusty, Brian, and then in some case we don't answer, it will go to Nate, so. I'll probably
In which
change,
case, I'll call Kyle and Dusty and Brian.
I'll probably change that to our emergency on-call phone, because someone always does have that phone
Correct.
on them.
Yeah.
24 hours a day, so.
Nice.
When will that all be?
Hopefully wrapped up by the end of this week, because next week we have our big lift station panel replacement. And with that replacement, that alarm system now is going to be sent over to that new computer instead of using our current supply, which would be Sweeney Controls. So it needs to be wrapped up by this week before that panel can go on. Do you have something more? Oh. Not really?
Anybody else for
He just-
Kyle?
That was exactly what I was going
No,
to
No,
say.
I was like, I
I had one more.
Okay.
All right, thanks, Kyle.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
Next stop.
Any other comments from council or questions?
Pretty cool, our Lennox ambulance is celebrating their 50 years of assisting and helping and being a real active member of our community. It's a fun celebration, I'm glad they were able to celebrate that on Saturday. I wasn't able to attend unfortunately, but did anyone make it over there for the celebration?
Yeah, Bergen and Rob were there, and then I ended up showing up as well.
Yeah,
Nate heard there's
Just slightly
cake.
behind schedule, right? Were there roles there? I didn't stick around to find out.
Oh,
Yeah.
snacks, yeah.
But I think, was it 13,000 calls is what Alan figured over their
Yeah.
50 years that they've handled.
wow.
It's great to hear some of the stories of former EMTs and paramedics. We were able to provide Brenda with a plaque for her 26 years of service, so.
Yeah, it was a neat, yeah, learned a lot there at that meeting too, a lot of history, that was really
Yeah, the
interesting.
stories
So,
were,
There's some pretty good stories.
it's, you just never think about that, right? You know, then they start telling all these stories from day one, and pretty interesting.
I think the biggest surprise for me, Alan had shared with me the number of calls, but we had figured, on Friday, Alan and I talked, and that I had never considered the possibility that someone would outlast Harold Timmerman in public service in any regard. And he only had 25 years in with the ambulance, and Brenda had 26. So that's, I mean, just between the two of them, talk about a ton of history there.
Yeah.
No doubt.
They were also at the Park Drive After 5 Touch a Truck event. My kids enjoyed looking inside the ambulance, and Alan let them hit the siren, so they really enjoyed that, and it was good to see them out there and getting familiar with the kids in the community.
Yeah, the commercial clubs really pulled it together. That's awesome. And the Touch a Truck, the variety of vehicles they had there, that was really cool to see. And everyone engaging, that was a lot of fun. It's been a good run, and I'm looking forward to the next one. Audrey, you had, you noted 203 visitors that stopped by during the school open house, and you held one in conjunction at the library?
Yep, we had, so every year with the back to school, for the last, I think I went back to my records, 4 years for sure. I don't think we did it prior to COVID, and of course we didn't do it the fall of COVID, but every year it kind of varies, and this year we actually had about 203 people come through. I spoke to at least 5 new families that lived right here in Lennox, in addition to a few new families that are from Worthing that came over. And it was good to let them know, you know, hey, this is where we are, and stuff like that. So they were really excited to try to get involved with the library too.
I'm sure.
So.
That is exciting. Good, good. We've got a growing school district, and when you're available like that, and people can come experience all that the library has to offer, it's tremendous. Hidden
Love that it's online too.
The Libby apps and stuff.
Yes.
Yep. I think I had four Libby calls in 1 week, just the other week. So, and then next month is National Library Week, or National Library Card Sign Up Month. And so in conjunction with that, I went out and spoke with Cassie out at Saddle Up Espresso. And so for every library card, every new library account, so if you don't have a library account, September is the month to come, you'll get a coupon to go see Saddle Up Espresso for 25% off and a drink. And then she's gonna accumulate those at the end of the month and draw for one $10 gift card winner.
How fun.
So we'll be promoting that then in September. So.
Cool, good idea.
Thanks.
Any other questions? Thanks, Audrey.
Thanks.
Yep.
Will, I'm curious, or Chief Erickson, I'm curious how we're winning on this, on the recent arrests. Hopefully it's not just an uptick in people using drugs. It's more so like Nate had kind of insinuated that we're better at identifying a situation and handling it.
Right people, right place. We sent JJ, Jordan Johnson, we sent him to a DRE training. He was a very active individual to begin with. Some of these trainings that we get, the personality fits into what they're actually getting. The DRE training on which we sent him to, it's a very specialized training. There are not very many DREs in South Dakota. He had to take a course that was like a week long, and then he ended up having to go fly out someplace and spend a week there identifying, in South Carolina, I think it was. So he got a lot of good experience on trying to identify, and a lot of what his training was about was just the visual aspect in identifying. The generalized training that we get doesn't give us that in-depth perspective of it, but it does give us a pretty good snapshot of what we should experience when we're out there. I would say my guys are doing really well as far as getting out there, making the contacts, and that's where it is. That's the bread and butter. If we're making contacts with people, that's where we're gonna find the drugs that are coming through this town. That's where we're gonna find the people that are just leaving the bar. Some people don't like that aspect, you know, we got kids in this town.
Yep.
And that's my primary goal, is to keep the kids as safe as we can, keep the adults as safe as we can. So they're out there being very proactive. I'm very proud of the work that they've done. They're hammering it every day, 110%.
It helps. Love to see you guys out there. That's great.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other comments, questions from council? Okay, if not, I'll look for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. We'll do roll call this evening. Peterson.
Aye.
Teasy.
Aye.
Swear.
Aye.
Doherty.
Aye.
Andrew.
Aye.
Welch.
Aye.
Okay, motion does carry. And now we're on to 4 old business, Department of Corrections proceeds.
Mayor and Council, I'm not gonna go through the entire memo here. I think most of you have had an opportunity from the last meeting and this meeting to read through that. There are 7 broad ideas in there, though that list is not exhaustive. But I want to get discussion moving on how council wishes to see this money used in the future. I would still caution you against getting too bought into any one idea at this point, simply because we don't know what's going to happen yet. I am not the least bit convinced that this vote goes unanimously, or I think it's going to be a very close vote in September at the legislative session for what's going to happen here. And so I would just want to make everybody fully aware that anything could happen yet, and it's still entirely possible that we need that $4.5 million for some upgrade of the plant in that event. So yeah, I just want to open up discussion, get the conversation started. So we'll quite frankly, just that Tyson and I can start looking at options and what state law will permit, what it would take to do certain ideas, and get the research started. I imagine this being a several-month process, and we'll report back to on a regular basis.
Okay. Discussion from members.
I don't have a change of opinion from 2 weeks ago when we discussed this. We still need to know what's going to happen with prison locations so we can determine what we really have to do and what we have to spend our money on. Obviously, the goal is to get the biggest bang for our citizens. And what that looks like is what we'll have to determine based on, are we processing sewage from a prison? Can we count on that additional revenue from that agreement? Or is it over? Right. And we now have a plan that we'll put in place to solve problems. But it's still too ambiguous to really, you could daydream, that's all.
Right. And I think, it's not like we aren't getting a pretty darn good bang for our buck right now. Pulling in $400,000 a year in interest is not insignificant. And if I remember right, that was I think that was a 2-year deal on the money market at Security Bank, if I remember right.
2 years.
I agree. I mean, being as I was part of the council that approved this agreement, I feel that obviously it's important to wait to make sure that we don't have to still fulfill the original terms of the agreement, but also our goal as a council, or my understanding of approving that, was we wanted to do something that benefited our citizens. And so whatever the outcome be, whether we're accepting the sewage or we're getting to use that money elsewhere, I think it needs to benefit the citizens directly and not just whatever else there might be to spend it on.
I think understanding, like we talked when we toured the wastewater plant 6 weeks ago or whenever it was, the upgrades that are needed at the prison comes is one thing, and that's plan A, but if that doesn't happen, then I think we need to generate that list of, other upgrades that maybe would take precedence or priority to the city itself, because those upgrades for the plant are important, but maybe not mission critical, or maybe not highest priority that would most benefit our citizens.
You're talking like lift station upgrades.
Things that would protect the properties in our town.
Yep.
So understanding like what those
And then,
costs would be.
I kind of lump that into capital equipment.
Yeah.
And we have a broad idea. We know that the north lift station is probably next. just because that's handling the growth from Countryside. When Countryside is pretty much full, we know that that's gonna need an upgrade regardless. I always wanna make sure everybody understands that even with pump upgrades, bigger pumps, more efficient pumps, whatever it may be, there's still only so much room in a force main, right? So that it's always going to be limited by those hydrological features of the system.
I don't know at this point if we want to discuss any of the other options or how we would rank them, but I mean, I think to me, like the reserves idea, I think makes a lot of sense, having, you know, keeping those surcharges from needing to increase or potentially even decreasing further is very attractive, I believe.
Agreed.
Yeah, we've started to look at the spreadsheet, the sewer and water utility rate study last year that we did, and trying to identify what our minimum reserves are going to need to be, adding that up, figuring out where we are. The big, as I was looking at it last week, and as we got out, you know, instructions to our department heads on 2026 budget, we of course need to look at what our utility rates are going to be. I know what Lewis and Clark is going to do, but our utility rate study says increase water, I think, by 12.5% next year.
It was an alarming number.
Right, and well, which is what we had for last year as well, for 25, I think, is right, 12.5 for 2 years, and then it necks down from there. I don't know that I need to do that. Right, I mean, if we've got ample reserves, granted they're all in sewer at this point, but if we've got ample reserves, and part of the rate increase was to cover building up those reserves, then can I really justify 12.5%?
No.
And I don't think I can, but we don't know what that number is yet. And so I don't know, I've gone back and forth all week with, do we go ahead with HDR and ask them to take another crack at that? Do we take our first crack at it and see what we can do with it? I think we can make some progress on our own, but I may want them to check our work on this. It's a pretty significant project, so.
How difficult is it to move funds out of the sewer fund that we've got in there right now?
Just a resolution, right?
Yeah. So like capital equipment and building a fund for that, as we know we have these expenses coming up. Would we have to get money out of our investment to move it, or can it just be on paper and leave the money where it sits?
I think you could just do it on investment. Or on the paper. And keep in mind, the money market, the account we have this in is a money market account. We can move money out of it.
Right.
We
The
have
CD was what, a 6-month or a 12-month?
12.
12, right, we're coming up, well, not quite, but we're halfway home.
Right. And so like, if you look at the memo, the expenses that you see in there for, well, for all of them, and Tyson, correct me if I'm wrong, but those are not coming directly out of that money market account. They're coming out of our fund balance, which means we're really using the American Bank and Trust account to pay those, but we're tracking it so that we know what we've used out of that 7.5. Good. I don't know if you're tracking what project numbers or construction in progress or what, but.
They do that towards the end.
Right.
I agree with what's been said too, it's just kind of waiting on to see exactly what happens, but also if we can look at the utility rate study and just to not increase that for our
Yeah, I mean,
citizens.
I'd like us to continue to pursue some of these options, so we have as much data and stuff, so we're not waiting till the decision is made and then starting to look at it. Like, I think we can be doing proactively this work. I think you're doing exactly the right thing of getting the ideas out there, you know. I mean, things like City Hall, yes, we know we need a City Hall, but realistically, I don't think that's gonna probably bubble to the top with this money, at least not right now.
Right.
Personally, I guess we can have a discussion on that, but to me, that there's other priorities that we need to tackle, and
I think the city hall thing is something that, and that may come out of our planning this fall,
Yeah,
right? That
Yeah.
could come out of,
I mean, that's a
we
long-term thing.
know where we're at
We need to
now,
address that at some point.
right?
Um,
And, how, what's the trigger point for us
Mhm.
making a move? That's gonna be the, what's the deciding factor? I mean, I can't think of anything right now, but,
And part of that might be understanding what is that true cost? And like, there's assets we can sell, there's assets we can
Correct.
get, so is that, what degree is that at? And-
yeah, what do we actually out here if
Right.
we do something?
Well, and when would there be a better funding environment for us to find grants and things of that nature? Because this isn't it right now. That's
No.
not- So it's a good discussion for us to have.
It may be something that we make sure that we have in our pocket, right?
For sure.
So that
Yeah.
we're ready
Yeah.
when that time comes.
Right.
So I'm hearing, get some work done on utility reserve and rates, right?
Yeah, and I like to also, I really like your idea of using it almost as a slush fund to cover things like the ironing land.
Yeah.
Not a slush.
Interfund to.
Yeah, but
And I do think we.
how could those
yeah.
play together? How could those two attacks play together?
Where's
Where,
the money for ourselves?
right, exactly.
Yeah. I do think, and Lauren, you mentioned interfund loans, I do think we need to do this with Lewis and Clark, otherwise you're just looking at another surcharge. Right, that's a
Right.
fairly small project over a number of years that, next year I think our payment due is like $130,000.
Mhm.
Okay, no problem, we can pay that out of interest proceeds, that's not a big deal. Over the course of 5 years, we'll be out more, but quite honestly, even if we don't do anything with that money, we'll have earned more than that in interest in 3 years, so.
Right, it's good to be slow on this.
Yep.
Any other discussion? Okay. Appreciate the feedback. Need to have some direction here and keep pressing forward a little bit. Now let's move on to new business. We have a housing study. Nate, you want to introduce that?
Mayor and Council, we have, as you know, we approved an agreement with Porchlight to conduct an updated housing study for Lennox this year. That report is available for your review and approval tonight. Burke is here in attendance tonight to present the results of that report. After the report, I just encourage some discussion on what role the council feels the city should play in facilitating those new housing needs. I think that's something we need to make sure we have clear lines of responsibility with LADC, and I think that relationship is working great right now. We're getting some interest in some housing options. Some of those are going to require TIF districts, for example. Somewhat small ones, but still require TIF districts. So just something to have in the back of your mind for what you want to see come out of this. Back in 2018, one of the first meetings I had was on the Nielsen project up north, and that was, and Billy could probably attest, very clearly my directive for the year was to make that happen. And given the results of this study, I can see something similar coming out of it, given the number of housing units we need. So just ask Burke to come up and present.
Hey, everybody. My name is.
Welcome back.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Good to be back. My name is Burke. You met me a few months ago, and now the work is done, which is exciting for me. Work starts for everyone else, I guess. But great to be here with you. I think, do you all have this slide? deck?
Yes,
Okay,
do you
awesome.
want it up here by chance?
It doesn't matter. I brought mine, so I can.
Then I think we're all.
Choose the top, but yeah. So I'll just tell you a little bit about the project and where things are at. Obviously, there's a great big report for you to look at, but it's also helpful to hear it out loud, I know. So a little bit about our process. What we did is we looked at existing data, so that was building permits, it was census data, it was anything else we could find that helped us understand what's going on in the community. We did a visual inspection where we drove around the community and looked at all the houses in the community and figured out what shape they were in. And then we collected input through interviews, and then we were going to do like a rental input survey. A few of our members here saw, no one showed up to that, but Nate was great about, we got a survey out to some renters, and so we got some good feedback from renters that way. I say we, Sophia Loescher, who's here with us, was our intern this summer. She lives in Frederick, but is back from the University of Chicago for the summer. And she's doing a housing study for Frederick right now, but she got to tag along through all the different parts of this process and kind of learn as we were going along. She helped with visual inspection, she sat in on the interviews, we talked about all the data together, so great to have her here as well. And really excited, she was just a couple weeks behind us on the housing study for Frederick, which is a much smaller community, but interesting to see that going on. So what do we actually do? You can look in the report if you want all the nerd details on how we model housing needs. But basically, we look at where are things right now and then make some adjustments to figure out where are they going to be 10 years from now. To model it out, we look at age cohorts. So basically, we look at what are the different age bands in the community, and then based on when people age from 20 to 30, are people coming into the community or leaving the community in Lennox? We kind of assume that's going to be the same going forward. So we do that. We figure out what vacancy rate should you have in the community, and then project demand. And at the same time, we look at the supply. So we look at how many houses do you have based on the ages of all the houses in your community. How many do we affect might become dilapidated, become uninhabitable, those type of things, so that we understand what do we expect the current supply to be 10 years from now, and so how many units do you need to bridge that supply and demand. So that's how we model it. Our visual inspection, we've got a great interactive map that you can click around on if you want in the report, if you go to the web version, where you can see our full visual inspection, but we basically categorize each house as sound, minor repairs, major repairs, or dilapidated. Now we also take a look at how many houses are being constructed right now and how many for sale signs are we seeing. So it's a really good resource for just understanding where are things in your community. The basic reality is in Lennox, your housing is in pretty good shape. Obviously every community has a few houses that you'd like to be in better shape, but overall your community is doing a really good job of keeping your housing stock in good quality, and that matters because it's expensive to build housing. It makes a lot more sense to maintain housing for a long time, and so if you can keep your housing stock in good shape, it can be passed on to the next generation, right? So key takeaways, we expect Lennox's population to increase from 2,587 in 2023 to 3,098 by 2033. And 2023 is our base year here because that's the most recent census data we have. So it's looking at 10 years, but into 8 years in the future and 2 years in the past. Other key takeaways, most renters with a household income below $50,000 are cost burdened. And that means they're paying more than 30% of their income for rent. So if you're making less than $50,000 in Lennox and you're renting, you're probably paying a significant portion of your income in rent right now. Other key takeaway, mobile homes are kind of filling that gap, right? So there's not a ton of rental housing in Lennox, and so for a lot of particularly the very low income folks in Lennox, they're turning to mobile homes as an option for where they live. And I know there's been a lot going on with mobile homes in the community right now and in those conversations, but I mean, the reality is you've got folks who are owning their own home that struggle to make those repairs, right? And so sometimes, one of the things we talked about in this report is they might be better aligned to a rental situation where they're not responsible for maintaining and keeping up with all of those repairs, but right now they're owning, and that's providing important housing for folks who work at the gas station or grocery store or other places where they may not have the highest income, but they provide important services for the community that everyone values. Other key takeaways, owner-occupied housing is affordable and available in Lennox right now. We see some people who are paying more than 30% of their income for owner-occupied housing, but the vast majority are not. So from that, we would take away that it's not a systemic issue for folks who are paying more than would be considered affordable. It's more so, the bank will give you more money than what would necessarily be affordable. And so some folks have done that, but it doesn't seem to be a systemic issue with owner-occupied. The last thing I'll just mention is that nearly a quarter of Lennox's households make $75,000 to $100,000. And so when you're thinking about what is a typical household in Lennox as far as income, what they can afford, that's really the income range you should be thinking about. And so Lennox doesn't have, we're also working in Harrisburg, for example. Lennox doesn't have as many of the very high income households that a community like Harrisburg has, but your median income is higher than the state as a whole. So the typical family is doing a little better off from an income perspective than the rest of the state, but it's in that $75,000 or $100,000 range for what people are making. So to quickly jump into the recommendations, recommendation 1 is a focus on rental housing. in the 10-year period from 2023 to 2033, you probably need about 156 multifamily units. So you can see broken down by age, by rent, what each of those are. So, for example, for households making $35,000 to $50,000, they can afford rent of $583 to $1,200, and there are about 49 units you need in that range. So that's kind of what you're looking at, 156 units. So over 10 years, 15 to 16 units per year is about what you need to, in 10 years, be balanced with the demand in the community. Our second recommendation is you need about 267 owner-occupied units, most of which would be single-family homes we'd expect in Lennox over the next 10 years. That's about the clip that you've been on over the past few years when you look at building permits. So the pace you've been on, if you stay on about that pace, you'll be meeting the demand in Lennox based on demographic changes over the next 10 years. And as you'll see, the biggest need is in that $75,000 to $100,000 income range. You need 104 units over the next 10 years. Now, with owner-occupied, we don't tell you this is how much that house is going to cost, because with interest rates, with how much people put for a down payment, that's going to fluctuate a lot, and I can't tell you what a house is going to cost in 2032 from, based on interest rates and things. But what we do include is in the interactive version of this report, we have a home affordability range calculator, and so you can plug in an income, figure out look at interest rates right now, figure out maybe what will people put down for a down payment, and get a quick range of, for example, if someone makes $85,000, they could afford a home between $190,000 to $284,000 based on 6.5% interest rate. So that can be helpful if you're just trying to ballpark what kind of house are we talking about to fill this specific unit demand. That can be helpful. But obviously, if you're looking at spec homes or those type of things, you'll be working with the developer more closely to figure out who is our exact target market and what do we expect that house to cost. Third recommendation is just preserving the small town character of Lennox through the managed growth and proactive code enforcement. So you all have been doing a really good job on code enforcement. I think things are in really good shape and really intentional about how fast are we growing, not growing faster than you can afford right now, but also keeping that growth up so the community continues to grow and see the benefits of that. And so we saw, Lennox is still a place where kids can bike around and people feel safe and happy with that, and I think you're on a good path right now. So not a recommendation for change, but just keep doing what you're doing, I guess. Recommendation 4 is a collaborative remediation process for mobile homes. So what this really is just acknowledging right now mobile homes are playing a role in what's happening in the community, and so be thoughtful in how you're interacting with that. Are there ways you can work with the residents to figure this out? I know it's tough. There's no golden bullet here, but just keeping in mind that, hey, these folks provide important services in the community. We aren't providing the rental housing that they need right now, and so just understanding that this can be a fallback right now and how do you deal with that. The last recommendation is just invest in community amenities to grow alongside new housing, making sure that Lennox is able to maintain its small town as opposed to suburbs of Sioux Falls, right? And so just making sure you have those amenities so that you can continue to attract people at the pace that you have been and serve the whole community. So you can visit the report. There's the link there, or I think Nate has sent it around. You can print it off and read it on paper if you want, but I encourage you to check out the interactive version. You can click around on the maps, you can hover over to the charts and things and see all the specific data, if that's your type of thing. And just something to keep in mind with the report is basically however much detail you want to go into, just go further and further down in the report. So you can read the executive summary and you'll get most of the good information. But if you want to understand how did they do the math on this thing, just keep scrolling down and you'll find it there. So sure. Basically, yeah, further down you go, the more information you'll get. Okay, that was a lot of information really quickly, but I want to be respectful of everyone's time. So questions?
Questions from council?
Was there anything that surprised you when you were going through?
It's interesting. I was actually surprised at how happy everyone in Lennox is. Not because of the data, but it was like, wow, we came into the community and people were like, yeah, things seem to be going along pretty well. We're happy with how things are. And what was coming up in the report was pretty aligned with how people already felt in the community, right? And that happens a lot. It's helpful to have the data to match to how people feel in the community. But so it was just a pleasant surprise. If you get into the community, you don't know what to expect. And we found that, this is a community that's coming along, and I think people are often on the same page about what to expect around these type of things. The other thing that surprised me, I'll say, is that we brought my wife's goddaughters down for the 4th of July parade, and the mayor somehow spotted me among all the people at the 4th of July parade. And I was shocked when you told me that.
You look lost.
Did you have another question?
Well, I was just gonna say, like, you heard some good things, which is encouraging. I guess, what are some of the things that jumped out to you as some negative comments you heard, or anything that you want to draw attention to that it might not have been an overarching theme, but maybe something just anecdotally we can take?
Yeah, I mean, I think two things I'll just draw your attention to. First, I mean, I think everyone knows there's conflict around mobile homes right now. How to deal with that, resolve that. I think that's something that was the biggest piece of unresolved tension as we kind of came through, right? And the second thing is, just popped up, you know, in the renter survey. I think we've got the data kind of at the end of the report, but people were just saying like, hey, like, we would like to have a little bit nicer places to rent. Sometimes the upkeep isn't always what we'd like. And so those would be kind of a couple of things to just keep an eye on, of particularly as if you're looking to expand rental housing, is just what does that quality look like, so that this is a place that people want to live.
So when you look at this report, when it says multi-family units, are you specifically looking at like a 4-plex, a 2-plex? Are we looking at large apartment?
Yeah, that's a great question. So what multifamily means, as far as when you're thinking about it, is basically multifamily means that you've got units that are on top of each other, and so that could be a 4-plex, like you said, or it could be, you know, we're going to have to build 130 units all at once and do it. That's probably not the right approach for Lennox, though, right? Is that giant? You're not going to have downtown Sioux Falls like downtown Lennox, and so it's probably smaller projects that fit into the community and the character of Lennox. But multifamily would be, yeah, apartments. You know, townhomes probably wouldn't fit in that because they're just sharing a wall. In the data, they actually show up as single-family homes. But you might look at where Lennox is and say, you know, we think we can get some real affordability out of townhomes, and so even though it's not technically multifamily, we think that can fill some of the rental need. Because at the end of the day, what those recommendations are is they're looking at what are communities like us as far as rurality, population, those type of things. What do those communities look like, and blending it with yours to understand single-family, multi-family, mobile home. And so this is helpful to understand where are our gaps compared to other communities, but you might say, we don't want to do like other communities, right? And go in a different way.
I guess in your experience, have you seen other communities with similar challenges, and how do they approach that? Or I guess, is there a success story you can glean that, you know, here's what good might look like?
That's a good question. I don't know if I have a good recommendation for that, other than I think the places, with multifamily specifically, the real benefit of multifamily, and you can see this in your building permit data, is that you just get it's a lot more affordable when you're sharing walls, when you're sharing, you know, roofs, those type of things. And so that, I would say that is maybe the piece of hope here, is that particularly for meeting these affordability challenges for households below $50,000, is if you come up with some multifamily projects, and that takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of elbow grease, right? Of talking to folks, figuring out how do we finance this, all this type of thing. But if you do that, you can hit some of these affordability targets. Now, you also have other components for very low income. You know, if someone's making less than $15,000 a year in household income, it is very difficult to afford somewhere to live. But there are folks who make that much money in Lennox, right? And so those typically take other you know, subsidized housing, those type of things. But if you bring all those pieces together and take an intentional approach, it's going to take a lot of work, but there are some solutions.
Other questions for Burke?
Awesome.
No, thank you. And just so, just to remind all of us too, we had Josh, you were on the calls with this study too, and Shreese in. So the part was to try to incorporate the Lennox Area Development Corp too. Am I missing anyone else that was involved?
Christie was on it.
Oh, Christie, yeah.
Who am I missing? I think that was it.
So it's good, useful information, not just for city council, but really for the whole community too.
Yeah.
So.
I did have another question, I just could not come up with it.
You did, okay.
I did. The townhomes that just went up over in Countryside, were those accounted for in your study, or because they're brand new? they were in process, I think, when you guys were going around town.
Right, so they would be, yeah, they would basically count toward your goals within, we're looking at your need from 2023 to 2033, so you can say, hey, we've accomplished part of that goal, right? But they are included when we're looking at the cost of housing in Lennox, those type of things, we did factor those, and we looked at the building permits for those.
Good.
But yeah, you have a little bit extra credit there. We've already started doing some of this, which is nice.
Yeah, we should, just follow up on that, we should look at the final preliminary plan that was submitted for Countryside and see what we have left to fill out there. In fact, I don't think it's much, maybe 25%, 33, somewhere in there. Just to see, you know, of what we need for single-family homes in the next 8 years, what of that is going to be covered by Countryside and what we need to get outside of that.
Agreed.
Well, thank you, everyone.
Yep, thank you, Brett.
Thanks, Bert. Thanks, Bert.
There's no action item on this. Oh yeah, there's, sorry, motion to accept the housing study report.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, motion carries. On to new business 5.2, we have municipal elections memo.
Mayor and council, some of you are going to be serving a few months more, depending on what you pick here tonight, than you had planned on. So potentially up to 6 months longer to your term, based on the laws that were passed by last year's legislative session. Last year, legislature passed, governor signed a bill that changes how and when our elections are held. I'm not going to go through all these bullet points here, but if you have questions about those, please feel free to ask. But changes deadlines, changes election dates. Basically, we have to pick either the primary date or the general election date for next year. And then for odd number years, starting in 2027, we need to hold it on either June 8 or November 2. My recommendation, and Tyson and I talked about this a little bit last week, is that we pick the November election date moving forward, simply because that it allows full voter participation in ways that a primary doesn't. And so I think it makes sense to maximize, if the goal of this bill was to maximize voter participation, then let's take the date that does exactly that.
And saves cost.
And saves cost.
Yes.
Yeah, we don't know how much yet, but, I mean, if we're looking at, I think we spent like $1,100 on the election this year. And Lincoln County thinks it's gonna cost us anywhere between $900 and $1,500 to do this with them. And we're doing far less work to make that happen. That's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
So if that's the direction that the council wishes to move, we'll prepare, I'm not sure if we have to do an ordinance yet or not, but we'll prepare that work.
If we're elected in in November, our terms don't start then until January, is it like similar to the governor then in those positions?
No, I think you would take office,
December?
the second meeting in November most likely, assuming, typically what we would do is after the election, we'll hold a special meeting to canvass the election as soon as we can, and then we would seat the new council in the next regularly scheduled meeting. So second meeting in November, which it does make it a little bit complicated because then you've got turnover in the middle of the budget process, for example. So you'll have one council that passes first reading, potentially a completely new council that will have to consider a second reading. So it makes it a little bit messy, but.
Can I ask a technical question about that particular example then?
Sure.
Could the new council, say majority of us are wiped out, could the new council reject the second reading and start the process all over then?
They would have to pass something. So, let me pull up the November calendar
It's a
here.
very valid.
Let's
It's
say,
kind of what it is, it's kind of an awkward timing.
Yeah.
let's say that you'd be seated on the 23rd, you would have to pass a new first reading that night. And then 5 days later, you could pass a second.
Is there a rule that you'd have to start the new council that quickly?
I can check,
What's that?
I can check.
Because we could maybe
December.
say it, yeah, but like, not
Like
until
a
the
month
budget is
after
done,
or
yeah,
whatever.
to allow the council.
First meeting in December,
Yeah, something like that.
because we'll have it wrapped up by then.
Walking a petition in the summer sounds better than February.
Yes.
And you've got a long time
Longer
frame here too, it's
time.
like 70 days or something, I think, that you've got to
Yeah.
fill out a petition, but,
But yeah, not before 4 months.
right.
I just think we'll have a little better voter turnout than in November as well.
And especially if we
Yeah.
can have our ballot consolidated with the
Yeah.
other election.
Right.
Yep, and hopefully that'll bring more folks out that wanna run for our seats. Bring some new eyeballs and brains and new perspectives, it's always great to have some turnover, not that I don't like you guys.
I'd like to get rid of a few of you as well. Understood. Understood.
Like the word "but" there.
Right? The qualifier. Yeah, let me look into what SDCL says about seating that new council. If it's not the next regularly scheduled, I think it makes sense to.
Well, because today we do the election in April.
I wasn't
You
seated
see
until
them.
May.
Yeah, it was
so
at least a
it's-
month.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My concern is that the bill says. Stand by.
I was like, just look it up.
Your term is extended until you or another candidate for office is duly elected and qualified. So duly elected happens on election day. Qualified happens at the canvass, which I think there's a statutory limit on how long you can wait to canvass. And if that's 2 weeks, then technically they're qualified at that point.
When you say
so.
canvas, does that mean like the background check and everything?
No, what happens is after the election, the council or any elected body, so in the county, a commission has to meet and say, yes, these are the results of the election.
They just validate the
Yeah.
ballots.
And just verify that the amounts are correct. And you can, you have the right as the governing body to count the ballots yourself as well, but we've never done so. So November is of interest, but let's make sure the timing works. Is that the,
Yeah, or is there, could there push the budget up, like,
That's what I was just gonna ask too, can we time it so that we get our
you
budget
could
approved
amend,
sooner?
yeah, you could amend that budget ordinance.
Right, we just got
to
the
do
win
it.
by letting it go into that time frame because it gives us a chance of having a complete year, at least we're within sight of it.
Yeah. So you could, and I'll have to go back and look, but I think the bill language said on the budget ordinance that it just had to be done by the end of November. So you probably could move that up to, you could move first reading to late October, second reading to first meeting in November. That would accomplish the same thing.
And it's not that a new council can't approve the budget, I just feel like if I were a new council member, I'd really have to do my homework before
Yeah.
coming to my first meeting and
voting
being
on it.
comfortable passing a second
Right.
reading of
Is
the
there a-
budget.
Well, especially
You're voting on $8 million potentially on that first meeting that you're, yeah.
Right.
is there a rule that our fiscal year has to be January to?
Oh.
Like my company's fiscal year is November 1st through October 30th.
Is it really?
Companies that are
I don't-
all like that.
I don't think there's a hard and fast rule. There's a lot of, every nonprofit I've been with is June to July, or July to June, excuse me. Federal fiscal year is October to September. So there's a lot of governments that'll follow that depending on how reliant their funding is on federal funding. I doubt there's a hard and fast rule, you know of one?
It's another way to approach it if we get our hands tied.
Mhm.
So a few things to look into, yeah.
Thank you.
5.3, motorized scooters.
Mayor and council, getting used to my new system yet. Alderman Vendrell and Welch request this item be added to the agenda for discussion. It's an opportunity for the council to discuss the growing use of motorized scooters in Lennox as well as the safety implications and any potential policy approaches. Included in your packet the ordinance that was recently approved by the City of Madison, just as an example of some of the action that's been taken lately in this field, as well as the Attorney General's opinion 04-04 that provides some guidance on the matter over 20 years ago. Nothing recent has been added to that. So this is not necessarily a new issue, but it would be kind of nice to have new guidance because this is over 20 years old. So. And the memo or the AG's opinion itself, treat that as guidance that this is the stuff that our police officers have to rely on because that's what, they have to look at however the statute treats this. And in my opinion, even with the AG's opinion, it's kind of clear as mud.
I know it says motor scooters, but would this include maybe like mopeds or anything like that under, per se, was it 50 cc's? That we could incorporate that?
You could, yeah. I mean, as a municipality, you have the right to regulate traffic on your streets and rights of way under SDCL 9. So I'm sure it gets into more detail than that, but.
Yeah.
And I think that's how this came about. I mean, this summer, I think a lot of the residents have noticed just increased use in these scooters in particular. We also have golf carts in town, of course, but those we already have permits for. And I think the biggest thing is it doesn't seem that the majority of these children are following traffic laws necessarily, but they're on the streets. And that's a safety concern, but also, I don't know, I just, it's a huge safety concern. And so what I'd really like to see us come out of this with, and it doesn't have to be tonight, of course, but I think we do need to pass some type of ordinance that kind of regulates or states what laws or what they should be following. So if they're on the street, are they following traffic laws? Are they stopping and yielding at stop signs and yield signs? Are they, because last night, for instance, my husband and I, we were on our golf cart, which is licensed. We follow the regulation. I mean, we stop at stop signs, and there was 2 kids on Main Street, second and Main, and they just blew right through the 4-way stop, and they were on the street. Granted, it's a 4-way stop, so any traffic coming to that intersection should be stopping anyways, but they're also traffic because they're on the road. And bicyclists, correct me if I'm wrong, if they're riding on the road, they're supposed to stop at a stop sign if they're pedaling a bike too,
Yeah.
right, Will?
I was gonna ask you, Chief Erickson, is there not enough clarity right now for you to enforce this type of situation?
There hasn't been. This has come up, not Lennox itself. I've been involved in numerous conversations with fellows in the surrounding communities about how they're handling them. It hasn't been a problem in Lennox until this year. I've noticed a couple of them in the past, the recent past, maybe a summer or 2 summers ago, but this year, somebody had a good sale on them. Everybody's got one. The 2 kids that I stopped, I can tell you, neither one of them were over 12 years old. So yeah, is there regulations for bikes? Yes, there is. Bikes, when they're operating on a roadway, are supposed to follow the same rules and regulations that a vehicle does. But a lot of that comes with your education from your parents. And we have that every summer as well. We have a lot of young kids, like 7, 8, 9. They zip right on through those intersections.
Even on a bicycle, is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
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 So is
Especially
it,
on a bicycle, that's
Yeah.
even more prevalent.
They're more comfortable doing it on a bicycle. And I have prefaced this with some of the people that complained to me this year is that I have driven these streets for a long time. And now we have 20-mile-an-hour speed limits and 15-mile-an-hour speed limits. That is not going to stop you from hitting a kid coming out from in between a car or blowing through an intersection. It just gives you a little bit more leeway. And I think we do need to do something about it. There is a need for it, and as long as these things keep coming up in popularity with these kids, they're gonna get younger. So there needs to be something that we do. I don't know what the right answer to that is yet. I have my way of handling it, and I've expressed it to some of my guys the way I would handle it, the way that I have been handling it. But the more popularity something gains, it's kind of like skateboards back in the day, when they used to zip up and down the sidewalks. On Main Street, you walk out of any building in this town back in the 90s, and you were probably taking somebody off on a skateboard or a bike.
We still have an ordinance on the books outlawing skateboards in the central business district.
Yes, yes. So, you know, again, every,
Struggling for
generationally, we're gonna see new problems and new issues that are gonna come up. I think this is our new fun goal to try to figure out how to properly combat this, the safe way, the smart way, and to make sure that it's fair and equitable to the kids so that we're not taking something away from their
Right.
youth.
Right.
It's not an if, it's a when. I mean, something is going to happen. I mean, just in my travels alone, I've had kids just zipping by, going to the same thing. And there's going to be that time when it's just going to happen. So
Right.
we need to figure something out, get the education out there, get the parents involved. Hey, your kid needs to follow some rules here, you know, whatever it takes.
Well, hunter safety is required for kids if they want to get a license. And that
Absolutely.
involves an education with the parent.
Driver's education is required to get a driver's license.
It's strange that this doesn't have anything like that. So would we look at that from our municipality and wanting to respect the freedoms that are out there while still having some rules and education to go with this, so we don't have just kids who don't know and kids who don't care?
Right.
So,
But we at least would have maybe, I'm not saying a pay for a permit, but a permitting system where you put the sticker on the scooter that says you did it. It's got a, whatever we want to put an L on it and make it, you know,
I hear a
reflective.
driving course coming on.
Well, it's just, but it sounds like
I would
that's
not want
kind
to
of needed, right?
so
Mr. Erickson.
before school started, I saw a teenager who's of licensed age driving a bicycle blow through the four-way stop sign. Tonight on the way here, I saw someone older than retirement age blow through a stop sign on a moped. So my thought is that, like, if you're gonna do that, you cannot single out just scooters.
No, I think it's any non-car, you know, like it's any.
I mean,
of
you
those.
gotta do it for all bikes. You
Well,
gotta do it for-
bicycles and electric bicycles, we've had those, there's a few of them around, but not a lot. But the scooters are way more affordable than the electric bikes. That's why they're really popular too, I think. 'Cause you can buy them on Amazon for $150. So yeah, where do you draw the line or that type of thing? Or do you enforce some sort of, okay, you need a helmet if you're riding something like that? I don't know, of a certain age.
There's a lot of fun and inventive ways we could combat this problem.
Yeah.
Bike rodeos, scooter rodeos.
Like I remember growing up,
Our bike rodeo was pretty good.
Yeah.
yeah, I remember growing up, it's called Safety Town, like all the kids, like you learned how to like ride your bike and stop and everything, like is some sort of program like that, you know, makes sense. I don't know.
Does the school put on anything like that?
They used to. I tried to revive it a few years back. I had a pretty good success. I felt like it was a great turnout.
Shields give like helmets, or somebody gave
The
helmets.
state gave us
Yeah.
helmets. But the problem with that was we actually had an officer that worked for us that was a bike cop. So he knew all the laws and he knew the course and he used to do this in Arizona. So it was like so perfectly set up. And then he left.
Sounds like a perfect job for Cole.
So we need to hire a cop on a scooter is what I'm hearing. That's the segue.
There was a segue around.
There's segues in town too, so we got that problem too.
But there's been a huge uptick this year in the amount of scooters. It's crazy. Have there been any accidents this year?
No.
Not that I know.
None that have been reported to the police department.
Or at least not like a car and there's probably been plenty of wipeouts.
That's your problem.
Yeah.
Off the
These
record.
kids are toting their little brother or sister on the thing too, and how do you guys do that? I would fall over.
I've seen a couple come past our house that can barely see over the handlebars, and I just.
Yeah,
I just
so-
don't-
Do you put an age, do you put a helmet required if you're under a license, you know, I don't know, there's a lot of, what do you do? I think you're right, Bill, I think it will happen, I mean, kids, kids get hit, and it's, the more of them out, which is great that they're out and about, but the more of them out, it's gonna happen at some point. So, choice is to be proactive with something or reactive.
You
later.
said you couldn't find anything that was more current, correct, in the
No,
area?
not with the AG. I just knew Madison had dealt with this recently.
Yeah, when did,
It
is this
came up
Madison a pretty recent?
July,
Okay.
yeah, it came up, their city administrator was on a flight with me and we talked about what they were doing and it was very recent, so.
And I don't necessarily love their ordinance in Madison, there's some pieces in here that I don't know that are necessary. I like the idea of a
I
safety
mean,
course and.
How fast do you think those go? Like, 'cause they're limiting it at 20, so that's kind of a technicality.
35 miles an hour.
Holy
They can
You
cow.
were clocking them.
Well, that's a
Yeah,
pretty high.
We were not clocking them, but there are some of those scooters
They
that
can go
can
that
reach.
much?
There's an adult version that's made specifically for adults, you're starting to see them in the bigger cities as those rental ones. They can achieve speeds of like 40 miles an hour on
Oh my
those things.
gosh.
Yeah, I would say most of the ones that they're buying are going anywhere from 15 to 18, maybe 20,
Some of those
around
lift
here.
scooters in
So
Nashville
golf
are
cart
going
speed.
40.
golf cart speed, I suppose, yeah.
I was booking it down in Omaha, I'm not gonna lie, on a line, and yeah, that's
Those
exhilarating.
go fast.
We had one in Sheboygan, we were cooking.
My golf cart tops out at 25.
So you get-
In sport mode.
So you speed through town.
No, I do not.
Following the stop signs, but
Well,
not
how do you
speeding.
know where it goes then?
Her husband, probably.
Take it down to the campground.
Sorry, Jake.
So, Will, have you looked at this Madison, ordinance at all?
I haven't reviewed the Madison ordinance.
I'm just curious, like, how you would interpret this, and like, does this even give you any type of, ammo or guidance, or, I mean, it's talking about going, you can't go more than 15 miles an hour on a sidewalk or city streets. And then it talks about if you're going over 20, you have to be at least 18 years old.
Do these things have
They
speedometers
do
though?
not have speedometers.
Yes, yes, they do.
Oh, they do?
Yeah, a lot of them do.
Oh, really? Because I was gonna say.
And they
my-
also, they can drive by the school and see how fast they're going.
Which they probably do.
Probably try to get high scores.
Topping it out.
Yeah, but a lot of, the cheap ones do.
I mean, if they're gonna be on the street, it would make sense for them to follow whatever the speed limit is on that particular street. So if it's Main Street, now that it's 15,
I
they
don't know
should be
how
driving 15.
perfect it is.
Right.
And they can't drive them on the highways, correct?
They shouldn't
No.
be, no.
I think
Because you
state law
can't,
limits
you can't
that.
take golf carts on the state highways.
Grandkids that
Oh,
ride
So-
What I haven't seen is like kids building ramps and jumping.
That's when you get.
No,
Not yet?
Amateurs.
I think there's a lot more that.
We were jumping our bikes all the time.
Part of the deal.
The language as
Your
far
son,
as.
is it your son's
Move
doing that? Yeah, I was like, your sons do that in the empty parking lot across the street.
They don't have electric ones though, they just have
Yeah,
the
we would-
regular.
I would
Okay.
try to keep
Yeah.
that way down.
So they're doing tricks on those things.
No, they're boys.
There's a few,
Maybe we can like
there's a
red
few
line,
things.
like
but-
red line
Invincible.
with some thoughts of.
Yeah,
They
There's-
wouldn't care.
As Dave and I were discussing,
the age limit thing is a little bit,
a lot of good suggestions in there. I don't know that I'm comfortable with a lot of the language.
Yeah.
I would like to bounce that off from Brett and get his input on how do we make that tailor-made for Lennox? What's that look like? And from an enforceable standard, what's a reasonable enforceable standard?
right,
And again, like, are they 16? Are they 12? You know, if it's a 12-year-old doing 20 miles an hour on one, I've got concerns. No helmet, no glass. Yeah, I would want to have a conversation with them. But first and foremost, You know, we gotta be able to talk to parents too. And I think this is one of those opportunities that we have to like maybe pair up and try to come up with something to get that bike rodeo going again. Joining in, like maybe talking to the school. When I first started here, that was an annual event for the first few years I was here. And then it just suddenly cut off. And I mean, it was in their gym. People from Shields were down here. There was a ton of bikes that were given away, helmets. I think this is an opportunity for us to explore that again on a larger scale, to incorporate that into the bike safety and make sure that we get with the school, and if they want to pair up with us on it, before these kids get out of school, let's get them, because we have them now. My bike rodeo, half the kids, you know, were at sports or they were camping out of town. I got a pretty good turnout, I felt, but not nearly what I was hoping for. I wanted 100 kids there, bare minimum, and I think I got like 50 or 60 kids, which again, still a good turnout, I'm not gonna complain, but I'd like to touch more brains on getting their education up on what they're supposed to do. And if I recall, that year we handed out more of those ice cream coupons because we paired up with Lennox.
Yep.
And those helmets were all over town, red, blue, and yellow,
Fun.
all over. Kids were still wearing them. So I think this is a good opportunity for us to explore. We'll see what we can do.
Well, I think that's a better step forward than trying to come up with our own, another ordinance or something that might just be an overreach. I'd rather start at education and see if that's a better opportunity.
Yeah.
I love seeing the kids out. And I
It'd be
know
Is
some
that
of them
where
don't know what
everybody's
they're
at?
doing, and it's scary for us old people that if we fell off, it'd be a problem.
Yeah.
But they're kids, and they're out, and they're not staring at the screen. You know, it's
Right.
just awesome to see.
Mhm.
It'd be nice to see if one of our officers would be willing to kind of become more educated as well.
Delegation is a wonderful thing.
Means you gotta buy one.
You got it, Chief.
I've got the perfect guy in mind, Officer Bradley.
Yes.
If he's watching this tonight, I'm sure I'll have a text message in about 3 minutes.
He's up to that, I believe. So, the route we're gonna take for now is education, is that?
Let's start there.
Okay. Can do. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank
Thank you.
Wanted to get Burke's opinion on that, since he mentioned kids riding bikes around town. So, I think that's it, I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We're adjourned.
You say you have.
Good night, guys.
Here.
Thank you.
They buzz down Highway 44.
Congrats on that grandbaby.
Parker.
It's a beautiful
Oh, really?
day.
Awesome, awesome, awesome.
Well,
I suppose it's right through the,
Oh,
that's
to
in our
say
town,
that's
so.
in the middle of town.
Well, yeah, and you've got all those semis that come through that are either going to Chancellor or going to
That's
Marion.
30 miles an hour on
It is, and it's 30 mile an hour, yes, and there's no sidewalks. So they're right on the edge of the road on those little scooters. Yes.
Good thing we've got our sidewalk.
Yes, it's a good
I was
thing
like,
you got your sidewalk
Another
there.
reason Lennox is better than Parker.
What?